Pole floats. You walk into any tackle shop and you're greeted with hundreds of different options when it comes to choosing the right pole float. It can be really confusing, and in this video I want to take out all the guesswork and show you what pole floats you need in your box to help you catch loads of fish using the pole. Now, welcome back to the channel everyone, and I wanted to do a lovely little video today about the pole floats and which different pole floats you're probably going to want in your tackle box to help you catch loads of fish. I mentioned in a video recently that we want to simplify our choices, and loads of you were like, oh, that's me. I end up with hundreds of different pole floats. I get confused because I don't know exactly what I'm using it for. I kind of just use it because it looks a bit nice or it looks fancy. So I thought I'd run through the whole range. So I make no apology, this video is going to have a lot of detail. It's probably going to go on a little bit, I'm not going to lie. But hopefully it'll have the detail in there that you need to help you choose the right pole floats, and more importantly make a proper choice when it comes to buying them, because let's be honest, they're not cheap. So if you go in the tackle shop and you want to buy a little handful of floats, you want to make sure you're buying the right one. So I'm going to run you through the whole range, each float individually, and you'll be able to make your own choice then whether you need that float in your armoury or not. So without further ado, let's get on with it and start with float number one. Now, before we get on with the main crux of this video, I'm going to ask you a quick favour before we get started, and that is to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. A whopping 60% of you watch these videos and aren't subscribed, so it's really easy to do. It's totally free. Just press that subscribe button and you'll never miss another video. Better still, leave me a comment down below what you want to see in the future, what you think to this video. Let me know what pole floats you're using at the moment, because I'm really interested. All the engagement really helps push these videos out to the wider audience, and we can get loads more views and create more content. Okay, float number one is the Cypri. Now, this is a real favourite of mine, and it's one of them floats that you can do pretty much anything with. So if you're going into the tackle shop and you just want to, you just literally going in and saying, right, I just need a float that I can pretty much have a go at anything with, the Cypri will be my choice. It's available in 4x10, which is roughly about a 0.15 gram-ish, 0.2 gram, right up to 4x18. So you've got a big range of sizes there. Now, it's just one of those typical slim body pole floats that we see that are so common. I'm going to call it the Chianti shape because that's evidently where that sort of pattern was inspired from, the Chianti shape. It's that slim body. I guess it's like an elongated rugby ball, and we all know how many of these you see in the tackle shops these days. By that I mean floats of this sort of shape and this nature. The Cypri is our take on that. It's got a 1.7mm tip, so it's not too thin. I think that's really important. Sometimes when you've got a really thin tip, they can be difficult to see, they can be difficult to shot, and they can be difficult to read. The 1.7 is just a touch thicker than most companies' sort of floats of this nature, and I think it's easier to dot down. You saw me last week using it for roach fishing on the river, absolutely great for hemp and tares. I've used it for maggots for F1s, I've used it for skimmers in the winter, I use it pinky fishing, I've used it for chopped worm, I used it for hard pellets, I've used it for chopped worm fishing in the summer for F1s and carp. Brilliant float. It's got the night eye bendy stem as well, so it's nice and strong and durable. It's a great float. As with all our floats, I'll do a little bit about our the manufacturing process in a little while, but as with all our floats, it's got that inline body as well and a power eye, so it's very, very strong. Sometimes because these floats are so slim, if you put a standard eye in these, they're often rip out, whereas these will never ever rip out, they'll never let you down. So yeah, the Cypri, what would I use it for? Like I say, if you just want one float that can do it all, the Cypri really is that float. Like I say, it's just a lovely slim bodied pattern. It works an absolute treat. It's available in a big range of sizes. And like I say, if you could just pick one that would do everything, that would be it, the Cypri. So if you just want a jack of all trades, that's the float for you. It fishes beautifully, very accurate. They take the same shot no matter which one, you know, if you pick up two or three different 4x10s, they'll all take exactly the same shot. A great all-round pattern is the Cypri. A float that is probably a little bit old school when it comes to modern sort of pole float designs is the Bulk. And this is a float that, I don't know, it's like, it's a body pattern. It's a long float as well. Got a nice long tip as well, so you've got plenty of, it can take plenty of shot, that float can, you know, you get a couple of droppers on that bristle to take it right down to a little dot. And it's one of them floats that isn't as popular as it once was. Like when we all used to do lots of natural fishing, we used to do lots of skimmer fishing, river fishing, this kind of float was commonplace, wasn't it? A body with a longish stem. But unfortunately, we just don't use that kind of pattern anymore. Not so much. We use floats such as the Cypri more. But the bulk is a really, really versatile pattern, especially when it comes to fishing on the bottom for better quality fish. If you're fishing for big skimmers, quality roach, tench, crusions, that kind of thing, even F1s and carp because it's such a strong float, but if you're fishing on the bottom over depth, then the bulk is a brilliant, brilliant float. You know, if you're fishing maggots, worms, even pellets, corn, baits like that, and you're fishing over depth for quality fish, then the bulk is just a great float for that. You know, if you go into Barston in the winter and you're targeting silvers, a float like that really works because you've got a lot of toe and this sort of profile body, this sort of, it's a round body, but it's not perfectly round, but it's that sort of, it's more bulbous than the float we showed you before. And it allows you, when they've got a toe going like that, you can keep a tight line to your pole tip or to the back shot, but mainly to the pole tip, and you can hang on to that float and slow it down in the toe. Really important float that is. It may not be the biggest seller in the world, but everyone should have a couple of floats like this in the box. Again, available in a big range of sizes from 0.4 up to a gram. Again, it's just, you can use them on rivers, you can use them on lakes, you can use them on canals, whatever. If you need a float for fishing on the bottom in sort of a stable fashion, the bulk is the one for you. It's got a nice sensitive tip without being too sensitive. You know, it's got 1.5, you can see it, but importantly, it's a nice long tip that you can leave a bit of show if you want to, or you can dot it down. Just a brilliant pattern for fishing hard on the bottom, and particularly when fishing over depth, looking for those quality fish. Changing tack a little bit is the Fury. Now the Fury, it's just, Brian Sullivan, who's a really good friend of ours, he describes this as a float for life. They just last forever. And if you are a carp angler who is fishing bigger baits in the margins or up against islands, the Fury is the float for you. It's got a 2.5mm tip, so a thick bristle that you can see. And as you can see, it's got a good length to it as well. If you can see that. It's got a good, long, thick, light bristle that you can see. And the good news about that is when you're fishing in the margins for those bigger carp, you've got to leave a bit of show on the float. This allows you to sort of differentiate between liners and proper bites. So if you're putting a big worm hook bait on, or 2 bits of corn, or a big cube of meat, or something like that, then this sort of float is perfect. It's got a glass stem, which is really stable. It's strong, it's durable, it's got that inline body that we've mentioned before, it's got the power eye like all our floats do, foam body, but it's got that sort of unoffensive body shape. You know, you can do anything with that. It's not too slim, it's not too bulbous, it's just in the middle, and it is just a great all-round carp float. And if I'm fishing in sort of 4 foot of water or less, then the Fury is just one of them floats that I reach for all the time. I've used them so often, and I've even used the 4x10 one for shallow fishing. So when I'm fishing 2 to 3 foot deep, a little bit deeper than dibber depth if you like, the Fury in a 4x10 is brilliant for that. A great all-round carp float, particularly if you're fishing in 4 foot or less. It's a brilliant little float, and like I say, super strong too. So if you're fishing for big carp in the edge, check out the Fury. On the complete flip side to the Fury is the tiny little Tinx. Now this is available in 4x8 up to 4x14, and it's a lovely little diamond shaped float. I mean, look, you can see in between my fingers there, it is tiny, tiny little float, and it is perfect for shallow fishing. If you're fishing maggots, casters, or 4mm pellets, this little beautiful little float is just unbelievable. It's got that lovely little bristle that you can see and read really nicely, but it's just the right proportions. If you're just fishing a foot deep, 18 inches deep, these tiny little floats are perfect. They cock straight away. You've seen me use them in my videos before. They cock straight away. They're fishing straight away. You can use them with a little bulk if you're catching at a set depth, or you can even use them with a little stringer shot. If you want to use a 4x10 or even a 4x8 with a stringer shot, maybe you're fishing for hide and you're fishing on the drop style, that kind of float, the Tinx, is perfect for that. They're a lovely, lovely little pattern, and they're one of the few that have got like a normal side eye. As you can see, it's just such a lovely little float. Again, 4x8 up to 4x14, and the 4x14 and 4x12, out of interest, are actually really nice for sort of mudline fishing. If you want to use a little diddy float, then it's ideal for that if you're fishing in sort of 12 inches of water. But the Tinx is just a beautiful little shallow float. Like I say, if you're fishing shallow for F1s and hide, and you just need a little bit more finesse than maybe a dibber, then this is the float for you. It's an absolute joy to use. They're brilliant. I mean, look how cute it is. It's a tiny little float, great floats, and they're super strong as well. They'll never ever let you down. So that's the Tinx, crafty little float for shallow fishing with those smaller baits. I'm going to stick with the shallow fishing theme, and this is one of the floats that I probably use more than any other in our range, especially in the summertime, and it is the big head. Now, the big head is our sort of take on a dibber, really. But one thing that used to frustrate me, I'm not saying I come up with this pattern, by the way, but one thing that used to frustrate me with dibbers is they've got a solid tip, whether that in the olden days they were like the balsa body was continued into the tip. Nowadays it's the foam body that's continued and used as the tip. They're quite hard to see because you're relying on paint. It's a solid tip, there's no light passing through it. And it used to frustrate the life out of me. And worse still, they were always quite delicate. And a dibber is for bagging, isn't it? It's for shallow fishing, it's for fishing really shallow. You're trying to catch lots of fish, big fish in some instances, and those dibbers just aren't up to the job. As soon as I seen this little big head, I'm like, that's the float for me. It's got a side eye that goes into the bristle there, and it goes through the body, and it is incredibly strong, this float. I mean, that is one of the original samples, that one, and it's still going strong. Just an amazing float. But what is important is the bristle. Rather than continuing that foam up and continuing the body into that classic dibber sort of skittles sort of shape, we've actually incorporated this bristle, which is a 4mm hollow bristle, and it stands out like a sore thumb. The light can pass through it, so it glows. So when you've got that good lovely sunlight, it absolutely glows like a beacon, this float. Available in 4x10, 4x12 and 4x14. If you're after a dibber float, dibbers are really good when you're fishing with a bulker shot and you're fishing shallow, slapping or mugging or just flicking around. A dibber is essential. And the big head is exactly that float. It's got a glass stem, it's really strong, really sturdy little float this is. I've got to be honest, I use the 4x10 the most. I've used it for F1 shallow, I've used it for carp shallow, I use the 4x10 an awful lot. But the 4x12 and 4x14 are really handy as well if you're fishing slightly deeper or you're, like I say, swinging at fish or anything like that. Just a great float, and they are just absolute bulletproof little floats. Really nice. Again, you know, I'll go through at the end which ones I find the most use of, but the big head, I've always got these tied up in my box no matter where I go, and like I say, more often than not a 4x10, but they're just a brilliant version of a dibber that I think everyone needs because you can see them, which is the most important thing in it. Now I'm continuing the theme of shallow floats, and I've got the old Jigger here. Now the Jigger is, I mean, I don't know who invented the Jigger, but I remember when I was in my match fishing days, I went out with Ian Haywood back in the day, and he did the Yorkshire Jiggers, which were an amazing float, and the Jigger has since caught, I mean, it's won thousands of matches, hasn't it? It is just a brilliant way to catch fish, and it is an enjoyable way to catch fish as well. It still amazes me you catch anything on it when you're jigging that rig up and down, you're jigging it through the float and you hook a fish. It's just an incredible feeling. And ours has got this lovely loading, so you don't, you know, it cocks straight away, it sits there on the surface nice and stable. Just a brilliant float. Now anyone who hasn't used a Jigger before, essentially the line passes straight through the middle of the float. You have a stop above the float, your bulker shot below it, and the float runs on a piece of line in between the stop and the bulk. And basically what you're trying to do is, it's for shallow fishing, this is, you're basically trying to lower your rig and your hook bait slowly through the water column and then jig it back up and then lower it back through. And when you're loose feeding maggots or pellets or casters, you get them fish competing in the upper layers. That hook bait that's sort of moving up and down through that thing is irresistible, and you catch loads of fish with one. Better still, it's like a self-hooking rig as well, and often your fish are hooked right in the top lip, stops you missing bites, as we know can often be a problem when you're shallow fishing. One size, 4x14, takes a lovely little bulker shot. Great floats these are. They're an absolute, our most popular float is the Jigger, and with good reason. You catch loads of fish with them. So if you haven't tried a Jigger, give it a go, because it's a really enjoyable way to fish. It's very interesting. It amazes me even to this day that we catch so many fish with them, but they just work, and it's well worth checking out if you haven't already. Okay. Now we are talking. the JC Paste. JC Paste. Obviously, I'm well known as a paste angler. And when Mick sort of said to me, says, can we design a paste float? I says, no, but I can design two for you. Because my fishing was split into two different categories, I'd say, when it comes to paste. Sort of open water paste fishing and then margin paste fishing. And as I've explained many times, it is two different things. Now the JC Paste is available in two sizes, 0.3 and 0.5. It's a long float. I'll explain why in a second. It's a long float. It's got a long tip. It's got a slim body and it's an inline float. No side eyes at all on this one. In fact, you can take the body off it. It comes off it completely. And the line passes through it. You slide the stem through the body and then it comes with a little rubber and you position that in there and then put rubbers on the bottom of the stem as normal you would with a normal pole float. Super strong, durable, there's nothing that can go wrong with these floats. They're absolutely brilliant. And I just wanted a simple paste float. I fish paste with minimal shot down the line, and that's exactly why I designed these floats so they were so long. So they're nice and stable without shot down the line. You can put shot down, of course you can, and I often use an Olivet for when I'm using the 0.5 model. I'll put a link to a video I did on the Nufish channel for that. But evidently, the whole principle of my paste fishing is about reducing resistance and reducing the buoyancy in the floats. I think that's why we miss so many bites with paste. I think they take it so confidently that as soon as they feel resistance or buoyancy on traditional paste floats that have got hollow tips and loads of air trapped in them, they spit it out and you miss the bite. And once I twigged that and I started using thin bristles or bristles like this, which I'll say, but I miss less bites. So one of the design decisions that we made with these was to carry this stem all the way to the very, very tip of these floats. And it goes all the way up there. That means that there's no air trapped in this hollow bristle. So you can still see it because it's a lovely bright tip, but that stem goes all the way to the very, very top of that bristle. Makes it incredibly strong. If you have just a hollow bristle that goes all the way with nothing inside it, they end up snapping off, especially the longer ones. Whereas these, because that stem goes all the way to the tip, they're very strong, but there's no air trapped in there, so you lose that buoyancy as well. Really important, and I found that that was a brilliant all-round paste float. We've sold tons of them, loads of you like them, and they're just brilliant. What more to be said about them than that? And obviously, I can't not mention the JC Margin. Just a unique float, which again, I'm so pleased with because we have sold so many of these, and more importantly, so many of you have got in touch with your catch reports and match wins and just general good feedback when it comes to these floats. And it really means the world to me because I've told this story before. I gave Mick my prototype floats that I'd been using for a couple of years, and he looked at them and then went, I get it, but I don't think that's a sellable product because the bristle's so thin. It doesn't look like a paste float should. And I said, yeah, fair enough, I get it. And obviously it's a commercial world, we've got to sell the products, haven't we? And he went away, and fair play, Mick went and got these floats made. Prototype, we got them with and without the tips. And he got it, and I showed him it. We went out and tested them, and I showed him in use, and he's like, bloody hell, that is brilliant. And he couldn't believe the difference it made from a fishing standpoint. But again, we had that doubt in our head that would it be a sellable product because it looks so alien to what people are used to as a paste float. And we had a really frank chat. I remember it in the front of his van, and he said, can we sell that float? And I said, look, mate, we can. We can explain and we can prove and we can show what a difference that float with that fin bristle can make. And he backed me to do it, and we released it, and it has been, apart from the Jigger, our best selling float. Anyone who's tried to get them will testify to the fact that the shops sell out of them. As soon as they get them, they sell out of them. Brilliant float, one size, lovely short float, but the key is that bristle. It's that bristle. It's the stem all the way. It's a simple pattern. The stem goes all the way to the tip, one piece, so it's super strong. But that fin bristle, and I've explained it a million times. What happens is when you're fishing in the margins, when the fish are in there and they're rooting around, as soon as the fish brushes your line, the buoyancy of like traditional paste floats stabs and it pulls the hook out of the paste. So you end up shipping in and having to rebait all the time. I wanted something that reduced the resistance. So when my float, or I got a liner, it would go under with no resistance and then pop back up again. And it just meant that my paste stayed on so much longer. Simple as that. Other benefits came after I realised that. They take the bait with so much more confidence because there's no buoyancy in the tip. The float goes, the paste goes, they take it, and you get these slow bites. Like, remember, like as a kid, you'd fish for perch with a worm and you'd wait and wait and wait, and the float would be going along the top like that, and you're just waiting for the fish to take the bait. It's like that with this. And obviously in this day and age when we're fishing dotted down with pellets and lifting at every single indication, this is totally different to that. Your float will go under, it'll fly under and you hit it anyway, but often you get these bites where it sort of goes like that and it goes under really slow and keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, and you wallop into them and they're perfectly hooked. And I'm convinced it's the lack of resistance and the fish is just feeding without caution. And it doesn't even know it's picked it up, it can't feel anything's wrong. And I have caught so many fish with these, and better still, you guys have as well. And yeah, if you're looking for a margin paste float, you'll not go far wrong with them. They're absolutely fantastic. And yeah, proud day that was when we launched them. Those two paste floats have been really popular and we've caught loads of fish on them as well. Moving swiftly on, and we move on to the Diablo. Now this has become a really useful float for me. We wanted to do a float that you could fish mudline style, shallow water margins, for your F1s and smaller carp. It's got a 2mm tip, and traditionally you see those sort of body down shapes. Now we wanted to do something a little bit different. And this compact diamond shape of the Diablo really works well. It settles incredibly fast. When you lower it in with a bulk, it just goes straight down to the tip. And as we know, these sort of diamond floats are incredibly stable. And when you're fishing in shallow water, mudline style, in the margins, when you're fishing with a bulk, with a heavy float, so these are available in 0.3, 0.4 and 0.5. So you're fishing a heavy float in shallow water to get stability, which allows you to pin that float either up against the island or against the bank in the margins. And this diamond shape just sits there lovely and stable. Diamonds for some reason just work really well for that. And that's why we did the Diablo. It's got a lovely short glass stem. Like I mentioned, 2mm bristles, so it's good for pellets, expanders, meat, corn, worms even. And it's just a great float for shallow water fishing. I've since used the 0.3 an awful lot at Barbie Banks where I go. I use the 0.3 with a string of shot, just 4 or 5 shot, and it works really well for hard pellets for that as well. So great little float that I've used an awful lot actually since it released. I thought it probably wouldn't be one I'd use a lot, but I have used it an awful lot just because it's so good. Super strong, stable, shallow water float for those smaller carp and F1s. Diablo. Okay, so one common complaint we get about pole floats, and it's not just ours, it's everyone's, is they're a pain in the backside to see, or even worse still, you can't see them at all. And that's kind of why we did our second range of floats, which were the big tops, because we wanted to make floats that you could see. And the RAF is exactly that. It's got a 3mm hollow tip, which, I mean, look at that, it absolutely glows. And it's got a diamond body, which, as we've already discussed, is a stable shape, and it's got a glass stem, a long glass stem. And the RAF was designed as an all-round float for people who probably can't see the float, if we're being honest. Lovely thick tip so you can see it. But actually, it has become a really firm favourite among our anglers. If you're using 8mm pellets or big bits of meat, this RAF float is brilliant. It just sits there. It's rock solid. It takes, you know, plenty of shot on the bristle, and it'll just sit there until it wallops under a big carp on. So if you're getting lots of liners, it like doesn't want to go under because of that thick tip and the buoyancy in there. Really nice float. I've used it a lot myself for that 8mm pellet fishing. You can dot it down if you want to, and you can still see it because it's such a nice thick tip. But ultimately, it's all about the visuals with this one. You can see it from a mile away, and let's be honest, we're not getting any younger. My eyes are not getting any better, and floats like this are a godsend. So the RAF is a diamond bodied float, so it's a good float anyway, but that extra thick top, if you are struggling to see your float, check out the RAF. Right, moving on to the final two floats in our range, and this is the Collett, named after our consultant Sam Collett, who is an absolute master at carp fishing. and he wanted a float that he could fish long on the bottom because he does a lot of hard pellet fishing for big carp, and he wanted a float that he could use for fishing long on the bottom, and he wanted it also for something he could fish at that sort of top kitten 2 line, and that is where the Collett was born. He wanted something that was a little bit longer than the norm, make it stable when he's fishing in 5, 6, 7, 8 foot of water, which some of these Midlands venues are quite deep in places, but he wanted a long tip. Now, as you can see, the Collett's got a long 2.5mm tip. The reason is, a lot of the floats are quite short in the tip, and when it's towing and windy, you've got to get that body down below the waves. Like when it's wavy and you've got that body right up in the surface, the float will bob and sit horrible. So he wanted a longish tip, which meant that he could dot it, you know, sort of put some shot on it and get it below that surface skim and still have plenty of bristles showing. Really important for targeting those carp on the bottom, having that bristle showing, which allows you to differentiate between liners and proper bites. And that's where that long tip came in. You know, you can get it down there below that surface skim and still have a good 15mm or more of bristle showing. Really, really nice floats. Got a lovely sort of body down, ever so slightly body down shape, and it's available in 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.75. Just a brilliant, brilliant float. I absolutely love them. I've used these so often. It's my go-to float now if I'm fishing on the bottom, like in the deeper water with hard pellets of 6mm, that kind of thing. And that's just the float I use. And when I say fishing on the bottom, I mean in the deeper water, so 4 foot or more. That's the float for me. I just think they're brilliant. I've never had one break. They're just absolutely awesome. And I know that so many people love these floats. Again, it's not the flashiest float in the box. It's not the novelty value float or anything like that, but it's just a good solid float. Does the job it's designed to do really well. Right, the final float in our range that I wanted to talk to you about today is the Clunk. Now, again, the Clunk came from the Big Head actually. I was using a 4x14 Big Head an awful lot with the shot all under the float, and using it for mugging or swinging to islands or fishing shallow with a longer line. And I kept showing it to Mick, and it was annoying me because I was getting an odd tangle where the shot was flipping over. And I sort of said to Mick we could do with a float that sort of is that without shot, and that's kind of where we came up with the Clunk. So it's got a heavy steel stem, which is all the loading. These don't take any shot. It's got a heavy steel stem, so you can use it to flick at the island or flick at cruising fish or anything like that. So it's got a bit of casting weight there, and it'll settle as well. It's got that lovely sort of, it's like a rugby ball body. And then we've got, importantly, the 5mm tip. Now, again, if you can't see one of them, then you definitely need to go to Specsavers. Really important when you're like mugging or fishing to islands, you just want a float you can see. And that Clunk is exactly that. Lovely little float, again, inline body, 2 sizes, 0.3 and 0.5. Now, importantly, that's not a shot in. That's just a relative casting weight. So 0.3 or 0.5 is just obviously 2 sizes that give you an idea of how much loading there is in the float to give you a casting weight. To be honest, I generally use the 0.3 for all my mugging fishing, but as I've shown in previous videos, a 0.5 is really handy when you flick into islands and you need a bit more control. Great little floats these are, just an absolute winner. Again, fast sellers these, so if you ever see them, grab them. Just a brilliant little float. So there you have it. That's my rundown of the nufish pole float range, the big tops and the extra strong inlines. Just brilliant floats. I think that's really important. Again, you know, you probably don't need all of these, but I've just given you a rundown. You can make your own choice. I like I say, I always have a Cypri tied up because they're just good all-round floats, whether I want to fish like smaller baits, maggots, casters, worms, that kind of thing. Obviously, I have my pace floats always tied up. I always have the Colletts tied up for my deep water carp fishing. And I've always got Furies and Big Heads tied up for me shallow fishing and margin fishing. So that's like my base. And then you can sort of tweak it to involve the other floats should you need them. Great floats, they won't let you down. They've been designed for a purpose as well. We haven't just released floats for float's sake. They are all there for a reason. And yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy using them. Hopefully that video was... Oh, I'll tell you what I was going to do. I was going to tell you a little bit about the materials and stuff, wasn't I, and the manufacturing. So they've all got an inline body. Hopefully you can see that. So as well as the power eye, the line passes through the body. like a little tube. Now this is really important because what happens, especially when you've got a float of that nature, that sort of shape, when the line goes around it, under extreme pressure, the line can dig into the body, obviously causing damage, water ingress, that kind of thing. We don't want that. That inline like body, that tube, means the line passes straight through there. Absolutely brilliant. Stops that cutting in, so you don't get any body damage. And then we didn't want like one of those horrible spring eyes or anything like that. So we've got the power eye on there. Never pulls out. Brilliant, brilliant floats. The stems go right through to the tips, so they're just brilliant. They all take the same shot. In fact, I've got a bit of a shotting guide that I often send people if they're struggling. And last week when I went on the river, I literally consulted that shotting guide for my Cypri, put the exact shot on that I'd put on that shotting guide, and I went on the river and fished with it. I never had to put a trimmer on it or anything, which just shows you how accurate they are. They're all brilliant floats, and I absolutely love them. Hopefully you do too. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you want me to cover anything else, I know someone mentioned line, if you want to, I did elastic the other week, if you want me to cover things in plenty of detail like this, I don't mind doing it at all. So let me know in the comments below and we'll see what we can do, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time.